Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Let's All Be the Change. I'm your host, David Tier, and this is my continuing series on great inventions. I've been doing this every week for about 3 months. I missed, I think, 3 weeks. It's been almost a month since I've made one of these. I apologize for that. Been pretty busy lately, but I'll try to keep doing this on a weekly basis from now on. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about what I think was a really important invention of this more, I'd say, sort of historical interest. And that was called the difference engine. And this was first built in 1822. So anyway, let me talk about it. So the guy who invented the difference engine was the guy shown on the bottom left. His name was Charles Babbage. You might have heard of him. He was a very famous English polymath. He was a very brilliant man. Not only was he an inventor, but he was also a pretty great mathematician and engineer. And you can see that this thing called the difference engine, which I guess I have to describe it to you. It was the one he built, the one he was able to complete, is the thing shown on the bottom middle here. That's a model. I don't think the original still exists, but this was the world's first artificially powered calculator, general purpose calculator. I mean, it could calculate a lot of really amazing stuff, including, I guess, scientific functions like logarithms. He was interested in computing logarithms. I think that was kind of his incentive. And one day, I read the story a long time ago. He was looking at a table of logarithms, and then he started daydreaming at dinner, and one of his associates said, "Well, what's on your mind?" He said, "I think I could build a machine that would compute this table of logarithms." And he basically did, which I think was really amazing. And I guess I have to tell you a little bit about how it worked. It worked by computing, constant differences. Like you would start with a table on the bottom where it would be like a linear sequence, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And then you take, or actually, the way it would do is you'd start with a sample of the sequence you were trying to calculate. Like you take maybe 10 values of the logarithm for, maybe log of 1.11, log of 1.12, log of 1.13, so on. Put all those values in by hand, and then you take differences, differences of two consecutive values, and you keep doing it until you get a constant difference, and then you just extend the sequence. And it worked. I mean, that's how he was able to calculate logarithms. I think he calculated a lot of other useful functions as well. Then he wanted to build a much bigger one. The one he built, I think, had like 6 decimal place precision, which I think is pretty damn good. But I think he was trying to build one with something like 16 place precision. And keep in mind, these were steam powered. And it was really a challenge for him because not all the necessary technology really existed at the time. I mean, we didn't have precision tools yet. Steam engines were cutting edge. They weren't really perfected yet. So it was very, very difficult for him to build these machines. So he did get a lot of funding though. Like he was pretty prestigious. He was able to get a lot of money from the British government to build these things. I think he had £1,700, which was a lot of money back then in the 19th century to build this first difference. And then I think the British government gave him like 17,000 to try to build the second one, but he ran out of money. He started building the second one. The first one took him 3 years. He worked on it from 1819 to 1822 when he finally completed it. The bigger one he started working on in 1823, and he was never able to complete it. He ran out of money, and but this is what he did complete, the one on the bottom right. I think you could still use it, even though it wasn't complete. He could, this is what he was able to complete by 1832. And then the next year, he got funding. Maybe that was a £17,000, I think. He wanted to build the world's first computer. These difference engines weren't computers; they were calculators. You had to put in the finite, the values of the function you're trying to compute by hand, at least a sample of them. But his analytical engine. This would have been the world's first artificially powered computer. Again, steam powered. And in case you're curious, I think it used base 10. It didn't use binary like modern computers today. But it was a computer. It would have been a computer, a real computer, because it would have been Turing complete. That's kind of the definition of computer today. Computer is something that can work with, basic logical operators, and it can, in principle, compute any classically computable thing. This is, it has the same abilities as any classical computer. I mean, not a quantum computer, but most of the computers everybody's worked with, including your laptop or your smartphone. It could have computed anything that any computers today. Any of these conventional computers would have worked. Of course, it was slower. It was never. It was completed. His son was finally able to complete it. He died in 1871, and he ran out of money to work on the analytical engine. But his son, what was his name? I think it was Henry Babbage. He completed it in 1910. I don't have a picture of it here. That's a different invention anyway. But that became the world's first computer. I don't know how practical it was. I think it was pretty slow. I've never heard it was used for anything. Probably was, but I don't know what it was used for. But we usually think of the computer as being invented in 1945. The first electronic computer was ENIAC. That was built by the U.S. Army. The rest is history. But anyway, I think Babbage's development was really remarkable. One thing I didn't mention, he had an associate named Ada Lovelace, and I don't think there was anything going on between them. But she was actually the world's first computer programmer. She wrote programs for his analytical engine. And another thing I didn't mention was a lot of the inspiration behind his analytic engine was the Jacquard loom. The Jacquard loom used punch cards to design different types of textile patterns, and that eventually became the same kind of technology that was used for punch cards that were used in early computers. I never used a computer with a punch card, but I think they were pretty common when in the early days of computers until probably around 1970. I think most computers did use punch cards, and so did Babbage's analytical engine. So anyway, so that completes my feature on the difference engine by Charles Babbage, which I think was a really great invention. So anyway, thank you for watching. Keep thinking, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.